Hello viewers, today in this video I'm going to discuss about passive transport. Now let's see introduction about passive transport. Passive transport is a fundamental biological process by which substances move across the cell membrane without the expenditure of metabolic energy. The cell membrane composed mainly of a phospholipid bilayer with embedded proteins act as a selectively permeable barrier that regulates the entry and exit of substances. Because the membrane is selectively permeable, only certain molecules can cross it freely while others require assistance. The driving force behind passive transport is the concentration gradient, which refers to the difference in concentration of a substance between two regions. Molecules tend to move spontaneously from an area where they are highly concentrated to an area where they are less concentrated. This movement occurs because particles are in constant random motion and naturally spread out to achieve uniform distribution. As long as a concentration difference exists, net movement will continue in the direction of lower concentration. Passive transport continues until equilibrium is reached. At equilibrium, the concentration of the substance becomes equal on both sides of the membrane and there is no net movement of molecules. However, individual molecules continue to move randomly. It is only the overall balance that remains stable. This state is known as dynamic equilibrium. Another important concept in passive transport is that it does not require cellular energy because the movement occurs downhill relative to the concentration gradient. In contrast, active transport requires energy to move substances against their gradient from low to high concentration. Thus, the passive transport is considered an energy efficient mechanism that supports essential cellular activities. Passive transport plays a crucial role in maintaining homeostasis, which is the stable internal environment of the cell. It allows oxygen to enter cells for respiration, carbon dioxide to exit as waste, nutrients to diffuse where needed, and water to maintain osmotic balance. Without passive transport, cells would not be able to sustain life process effectively. Now we'll see about types of passive transport. First one is simple diffusion. Simple diffusion is the movement of small nonpolar molecules directly through the phospholipid bilayer of the cell membrane without the help of transport proteins and without the expenditure of energy. This process occurs because molecules possess kinetic energy and move randomly, resulting in a net movement from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration until equilibrium is reached. The rate of diffusion depends upon factors such as concentration gradient, temperature, surface area of the membrane, and size of the molecule. Smaller molecules diffuse faster than larger ones. Example, the movement of oxygen into cells and carbon dioxide out of cells during respiration. Next one is facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion is the passive movement of polar molecules, ions or larger substances across the membrane with the help of specific transport proteins such as carrier proteins or channel proteins. Although it does not require ATP, it differs from simple diffusion because it depends on protein availability. Carrier proteins bind to specific molecules, undergo a conformational change and release the molecule on the other side of the membrane. Channel protein forms pores that allow specific ions to pass through. This process is selective and can be regulated. The rate of facilitated diffusion increases with concentration gradient but only up to a certain point. An example is glucose transport into cells through glut carriers and ion movement through sodium or potassium channels. And the last one is osmosis. Although water molecules are polar, they are small enough to move across the plasma membrane without requiring active transport. Special channel proteins called aquaporin, which helps water molecules move quickly across the cell membrane. The passive diffusion of water across a selectively permeable membrane is known as osmosis. The direction of water movements depends on the concentration of water inside and outside of the cell. In an isotonic solution, the concentration of water is equal inside and outside the cell, so the intake and output of water are balanced. In this condition, animal cells function normally because there is no net movement of water. In a hypertonic solution, the concentration of water is higher inside the cell than outside. So, water diffuses out of the cell and the cell shrinks. In a hypotonic solution, the concentration of water is higher outside the cell than inside. So, water enters the cell, causing it to swell and possibly burst. Coming to the importance, passive transport plays a vital role in maintaining cellular homeostasis, which is the stable internal environment necessary for proper cell function. It allows oxygen to enter cell from the surrounding environment, where it is used in cellular respiration to produce energy. At the same time, passive transport enables carbon dioxide, a waste product of respiration, to diffuse out of the cell and be removed from the body. This process also helps essential nutrients move into the cell according to their concentration gradient, ensuring that cell receives the substances required for growth and metabolism. In addition, passive transport regulates the movement of water across the membrane through osmosis, thereby maintaining proper water and osmotic balance within the cell. Thus, passive transport is essential for the survival and normal functioning of cells. Thank you viewers for listening and watching my video.